What did you learn from Aubergine before his untimely demise? Oh dear me, I'm terribly sorry. The MG ZS 180. Just how different is it from a Rover 45 V6? Should you care? Why, let's find out, shall we? MG, let's go.
Here we are with anchors tying us to what we'll call home, even if the sight of it has not yet touched our eyes. And here we are and we're together, even if we are apart. And we're together when we're together. Something big is happening among us. It's not as if we don't have to deal with our shortcomings. It's not as if we don't have to...
So welcome to a much requested episode of Tweed Jacket Reviews. Today we're in the lovely countryside of Essex, and this is a 2005 MG ZS 180. This car's been very kindly lent to us by Paul, who is a channel viewer and also member of the Rover 45 and MG ZS Facebook group. So thanks, Paul. Full. Before I get into more detail about the MG ZS 180, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, to like this video and to leave a comment below. It really helps us out and also enables us to spread the love of tweed jackets all over the internet. So the MG ZS 180 is very much related to the Rover 45 V6, and of course I have a Rover 45 V6. You will have probably seen that on the channel. If you haven't, then I will leave a link to the Tweed Jacket Reviews episode of that in the description below. But essentially, when MG Rover became independent, they were bought out by a group of people called the Phoenix Consortium in 2000. They wanted new models, with not much money to develop them. They decided actually that they would develop what they had, which was the Rover 25, 45 and 75 into the MG ZR, ZS and ZT. One of the things they decided to do straight away is to put a manual gearbox into a Rover 45 V6, up the capacity to 2.5 litres by using the engine from a Rover 75, which actually has 177 brake horsepower, but we won't quibble over small differences like that. And thereby unleashing upon the world an absolute beast of a car. This car's actually got a modified exhaust, so it might even produce a little bit more than 177 brake horsepower. With this 5-speed manual, I think this is a Getrag unit from the Rover 75 and the MG ZT. This car will do 0 to 60 in something utterly ridiculous, like 7.3 seconds. They also have modified the suspension in this car, and you know, the suspension setup in my Rover 45 V6 is very good. It's reasonably comfortable, but also very good on the corners. But this is just wow. I don't know what else to say, but it's madness. It's very firm, but also reasonably compliant. It does crash a little bit over certain bumps, but oh my gosh, it's just wonderful to drive. The steering is fantastic. The acceleration is phenomenal, and it makes such a nice noise. The KV6 engine, which was developed in the 1990s when BMW owned Rover, is a very characterful engine with any displacement, but with this type and of a manual gearbox, oh my gosh. I wouldn't say that I necessarily want to trade in my 45 V6 anytime soon, but wow. There were other models, of course, in the range, apart from the ZS 180, and those were the ZS 105 that wasn't sold in this country, but it's a 1.4 K series 4-cylinder engine. There's also the ZS 110, which is a 1.6 litre engine, but developed about 107 horsepower. Then there is the ZS 120, that was 118 horsepower, it's a 1.8 litre engine. And there was also an automatic version on the ZS 120. I didn't realise that the other day, actually. I don't know why you'd want to buy an automatic MG ZS, but it was available, so there we go. There, of course, were also some diesels, but oh, as you know from many episodes of Tweed Jacket Reviews, we don't talk about those on this channel. I mean, really, why would you want a diesel when you can have this KV6? Why would you? it's just brilliant. I mean, sure, it's not going to get you anywhere near the sort of miles per gallon that you get from the 2-litre L series diesel that I accidentally mentioned, but it just suits the car so well. Peter Stevens, who had been responsible for a number of famous sports cars, was brought in to help redesign these cars, and he put things like the big wing on the back. That was a no-cost option that we've got here, along with the smaller wing. This car's got both of them. The post-facelift cars from 2004 onwards, early 2004, like this one, actually have side air intakes here, this body kit, this big air dam, and of course the other sort of things that you find on something like a Rover 45. You've got the different headlamps, different profile of the boot spoiler, things like that. It's a very mean looking car, and prices of these are really on the rise. A few years ago you could probably pick one of these up for less than £1,000 in reasonable condition, but now 3, 4. This car's already done 77,000 miles as well, and it's an absolute sort of showpiece. This car, it's in show condition, and it's just a perfect example. It doesn't really do many miles or anything, and I think Paul, if he keeps it for a few more years, he's going to have one heck of a car to if he ever wants to sell it. But I don't think he'll want to. I mean, driven it, but wow. Obviously there are a few issues with the MG ZS 180, as there are the Rover 45. First of which, you can feel the suspension's a bit firmer than a 45 V6 there. First of which is actually rust. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of cars of this era, particularly Japanese co-developed ones like this, because this, after all, traces its lineage all the way back to the 1992 Honda Demani, which is very similar to the Civic at the time. But it's not really that bad. So the main places to check for rust on one of these would be the rear wheel arches, the under chassis, where the car actually has a propensity to rust in the area below where the passenger sits. And then just underneath the A-pillars at the bottom of there. Those tend to be the places that I've seen them go, but obviously there can be other places too. If your car's got a sunroof, this one doesn't have one, but I think you could get a sunroof on a ZS, then that makes it worse for some reason. I don't really know why, but there we go. The trim levels available on a ZS were just ZS, say 120. Then there was a plus pack that you could add to that with more equipment. This ZS 180 doesn't really have a plus variant, it just comes on its own. There were some options you could add to it, but one thing we do have is climate control, like in a Pagani Zonda, exactly the same unit. We've got ABS and EBD. You're going to need that, I think, in a car like this. Very big brake discs at the front and the rear. And also in this particular car, we've got the 11-spoke MG alloy wheels. They're very sought after, actually. You could put those on a lot of cars. You could put those actually on a Rover R8 or Rover 45 or Rover 25 or things like that. You can even I think they're compatible with MGF and MGTF, but I don't quote me on that, but I think they possibly are too. Actually, I think you can even put this on a Honda Civic if you want to. Just open up the engine a little bit more for... Oh! I'm driving quite conservatively around here because I don't want to damage his car, and also this isn't Tweed jacket reviews. I should take my jacket off when I drive, you know, in a hooligan fashion, but something about this car that makes you want to drive it really, really hard. In terms of practicality and running costs and things like that, well, insurance isn't that cheap on one of these actually. 45 isn't too bad. But insurance, it would be a little bit of an issue or something like this, just because it's a little bit on the leery side. Miles per gallon, I mean, if you do drive it sensibly, and you know, honestly, why would you drive this sensibly? Then you might get 30 miles per gallon, you might not get that. With the other gearboxes available, there would be the old R65 gearbox that Rover had originally covered up with Peugeot in the 1990s. That would be available on pre-facelift cars before mid-2003 on 1.4, 1.6 engine only. So just really this on market, the ZS110. That was replaced in mid-2003 with a Ford IB5 gearbox. And then on the 1.8 litre cars that weren't automatic, you'd have the PG1 gearbox that has been around for ages. On high mileage cars or cars that we've driven a lot in town, both the R65 and the PG1 can go a bit baggy. The IB5 doesn't tend to be quite so bad for some reason, maybe because it's a Ford unit. This one, it feels just like an MG ZT 190. You can tune a KV6 up to 200 horsepower plus or more. They actually sold a version of the MG ZT in Australia and badged it the ZT 220. And you feel the chassis is so composed and the steering is so nice that you could imagine it could handle a lot more power than this. I'm so pleased to have finally driven one of these cars. It's been such a long time since somebody first suggested I did, and even I made a video back during peak lockdown which actually talked about the fact that I wanted to drive a ZS180, having seen one on James Martin's channel, JM on Cars, and James very kindly let me use his footage of the ZS180 to demonstrate that. But it is just fantastic. There's no other way to describe it. On the KV6 engine, you do have issues like the plastic thermostat housing can explode with no warning. The Viz system on the inlet manifold can go bad. This car's had it changed, and the inlet manifold, I've had both of those done on my KV6 engine, Rover 45 V6. And of course, on the K series engines, what you need to do is be very, very mindful of changing the cam belt regularly, as on a KV6 one like this. Actually, there's 3 cam belts in this, and that will cost you £500 to do that. It needs to be done about every 5 years. On a K series, it won't cost as much as that. There's only 1 cam belt, but don't neglect that. Also, cylinder head gaskets, they do fail. Make sure if you're going to replace one of those, use the Victor Rhines or similar set and get it done properly. Because there's lots and lots of dodgy head gaskets out there. The bit besides the fail of a K-series engine is because of the plastic dowel pins that hold the head together, they will sort of melt or distort, and then the head warps, and yeah, it's not good. Anyway, let's sadly head to more practical surroundings and talk about other things to do with this car.
It's not yet touched our eyes. Here we are and we're together, even if we are apart. And we're together when we're together. Something big is happening among us. It's not as if we don't have to deal with our shortcomings.
Wow. Maybe I should have bought one of these myself after all. Anyway, whilst we speculate about that, let's go and have a look at a boot and see how practical this ZS 180 is. Unsurprisingly, the space inside the boot is exactly the same as the Rover 45 saloon. There's two ways of opening this post facelift model. We can either use the dreaded Pektron remote, or we can use the lever inside the car, which we just did there. Lift this up carefully. Now, there were two boot spoiler options on a ZS 180, this large one and this small one, or actually both, and this car's got both. Just open that up and we'll see we've got exactly the same amount of space as a 45 saloon. And if we just lift this up, we will find a nice full-size spare wheel, because that was one of the options you could have. Mine has a space saver. Paul has done a lot of detailed work to this car. So for example, we've got no sagging trim here, which is a really common fault on these. I believe you can actually fold the seats on this. We're not going to do that today because it is a bit of a pain. But yeah, it's actually a very spacious boot. One on mine, which is exactly the same size, is very suitable for going on holiday and other missions that you might prefer. In the Rover 45 V6 review, it was hard to get in the back. It's still hard to get in the back. My head is up against the roof, my knees are here. This is my driving position and I'm 5'11". There's not a lot of space in here really. I know some people have been saying to me, oh, you know, you shouldn't drive like that. Well, that's the position I drive in, so it's a bit bad really. One thing we're missing here is a central armrest. You don't actually get one. Also, not all of these cars had rear headrest, but I think it's a surprising omission for a car made in 2005. Still got the ashtray here, which is, you know, reminiscent of cars from the 1990s. Paul's door cards are a little bit better than mine, but they still suffer from the classic HHR Rover 400, 45 and MGZS problem, that they are a bit baggy, which is more noticeable in the front. Rear electric windows, of course, but no real other massive changes from the car you've already seen probably. Just like a 45 V6, ideally the place you want to be is up front in this driver's seat. Multi-way adjustment, of course, just of height adjustment, as well as going back and forth. Steering wheel only adjusts for height though, which is maybe a problem if you've got short arms like I have. The key just in there. Got an aftermarket stereo in this, but to be honest, towards the end of production like this car, MG Rover were just throwing in whatever stereo they kind of could, and this Alpine unit looks pretty good to me. We have, however, got one very, very interesting thing in this car, which is the climate controls from a Pagani Zonda. Yes, I thought you'd be interested in that. Not really. This car has the post facelift dashboard, which is hard touch and is liable actually to cracking in this sort of area here. This one's absolutely fine, so it must have been garage, but the 2004 Rover 45 1.4 Club SE I had actually had dashboard cracks on it at about 6 years old. The one thing that has changed is that you can't have the same two vents up here for fresh air when you have warm air in the other vents, which is a bit of a strange thing. But the hazard light switch is here. We've got the fog light switches here, which is a lot better than up here. And then the door locking buttons have actually got their own button as opposed to fiddling with the locking up here, and a rear heated window. The owner of this car, Paul, had actually put heated seats in this one as well. They were an option, they weren't standard, unlike in my 45 V6. Down here we've got the sort of surround. This is like a sort of black wood. It's similar to what I had in my post-facelift 45 actually. These stalks are actually different from all the others in an HHR 400 or a 45. Pre-facelift one anyway, because in early 2004, when these cars were facelifted, they changed the stalks and they feel so much better than the standard kind of early 90s Honda ones, which you would have had in my car. The instruments in this car are of the latest style that MG Rover would have ever made for a ZS, and they are silver backed with black writing. If I were to turn the lights on, they have a little orange glow, but that won't show up very well on camera, unfortunately, because of the light today. I do like these Audi TT style vents, although they don't necessarily feel that good when you move them, but they're okay. The mirror switch here is probably off a Honda Civic from the early 90s, although they changed the graphic on it for some reason to make it look a bit more modern. We've still got the same issue that we have in a pre-facelift 45 or ZS, where the electric mirror switches are down here for every other window apart from the driver's one. The driver's one is just up there. This is a one shot down window, by the way. I do like the dashboard and the way it looks, but in terms of actual kind of sturdiness and functionality, I do prefer the earlier one. Mind you, if you're buying one of these, then you're up right at the top of any HHR value. This car is worth quite a lot more money than they used to be, and so to have a dashboard like this in this sort of condition is amazing. Right, let's try my secret mission documents in a glove box. They fitted in my car, and they fit in this one as well. No surprises there. If I pull them out again, we can also see they fit nicely in the door pocket that side too. One thing you'll hear me say quite a lot is that HHR 400 or 45 or a ZS doesn't have very good rear visibility, particularly on the saloons like this one. Now, we have got two rear wings on this car, the standard small one and the optional large one. That was a no-cost option actually, though you could have either, and that probably helps place the car a little bit better than having nothing there at all. However, this car does have parking sensors, and I'd thoroughly recommend them. So then, what do I think of the MG ZS 180? Well, predictably, if you're expecting me to really criticise this car, then it's not really going to happen that much, although it does have the flaws. But with prices on the rise, maybe it's time that you tried one of these yourself. Oh dear, I'm so sorry. Who knows? Maybe she bears closer inspection. Thank you for watching this episode of Tweed Jacket Reviews. My name is Joseph Lloyd, and I find cars for people on a professional basis. To find out more, please visit my website or my Facebook page. Links are in the description below. Thank you.